Yeah, turn around. Yeah, look at the back end. That's a solid. Look at the line works. It's through. Who's your guy? You got a guy?
Uh, yeah, I just go to the same place every time.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah.
now the thing is now I can't wait to see the video because I've actually never seen the back of my head. So
I worry that you're going to see the back of your head and be like, oh, it's not as good as Brandon says it is. That's not good. That looks nice. You made a good. I think it's tight. You'll look appropriate. Is it you look cold in your own home, which I worry about since
Well, that's why I'm wearing the flannel here because I've actually like I it was a big I got a cut on Wednesday I think and like I noticed a difference immediately. Like my head is freaking cold.
yeah.
So
That's why I go pretty feral in the wintertime. Like you'll
yeah,
I feel like this we've done this long enough that you can see the stages of like my haircut and how
yeah,
there's gonna be a period of time, and I might not let it happen this year, but around February, I just like it like in February I look like I've gone mad. Like I'm just like, how's it going, everybody? And it's
yeah.
the toughest of the seasons in my and of the months, in my opinion. I think the January, February,
Mhm.
those January, February, those last all year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
just go on forever. Speaking of which, hi Andrew,
Good morning, Brandon.
good to see you.
You
Start
too.
that timer.
All right.
So now that the timer's starting, we're on official time. We need to bring up, I think, something important. We are not dropping a new episode next week because it's Thanksgiving, and we're gonna go around our family and eat too much salt. That's the plan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, and that is specifically the plan. Like too much salt. I mean, definitely need a little bit more salt in my diet. But the good news is
no, you
that
don't. No, that's too much. You have too much salt in your diet. You're an American. You have too much salt in your diet.
yeah, exactly. But the good news is that we do have a new product coming out.
Yeah, we have a new Yonko LLC product. It is called Illegal Scam Hold Music. It
Mhm.
is God willing and the tide don't rise. It is going to drop on Black Friday, so it's a new product that we're selling to you on Black Friday for free. You're welcome. Um, and that is all we're going to say about it. The next few episodes, probably after that, are going to be us talking about the illegal scam hold music. So we're going to talk about that. So that's going to take up a little bit of space and time, and we're going to bring people on who have done it, hopefully.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's a big project. We've been working on it since the summer,
Mhm.
so it will be good to give it little wings and tell it to fly away.
Yeah, I think we could definitely say that. I mean, we don't want to say too much about it prior to the show, but I think we can say that it was a much bigger project than we normally do. So
Oh yeah, I mean that's a people want to know that. That's the thing people
yeah,
want to know is it spiraled out of control and ended up with us screaming at in huge screaming matches,
exactly.
just gigantic blowout. Yonko broke up like four times over this one.
Yeah, exactly.
It is truly a white album. I think that's my favorite. I'm gonna say this. That's my favorite Beatles album, and I think it says
Dude,
something.
hands down.
What?
Hands down, my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that it's a mess is something I like about. Like it's too
Mhm.
big. It's too
Yeah.
big. There's just stuff on it that doesn't need to be on it.
Mhm.
But that's what makes it interesting to me.
Mhm.
I think I think the Beatles are hold for it correctly rated. I think the Beatles are as good as people say they are. I
Mhm.
think that they have this weird problem where they keep getting mixed really poorly, and it's hard
Mhm.
to realize how good they are. In the '90s, the CDs were terrible. Famously, Apple CDs
Mhm.
were awful, and then the new digital mixes are all bad.
Mhm.
And I think it's a lot to be said. I also have an opinion that Kiss is better than I give them credit for because the first time I heard an original mastered Kiss, I was like, these guys are just rocking out in a room. I
Mhm.
get this now. And then you hear the new stuff and it's all compressed and like it sounds like Yonko product. And like you don't realize that it's a rock band doing rock band things.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think yeah. So I think the thing with the Beatles is like that I totally agree by the way. I think they're absolutely correctly rated. And I think I think the people that don't agree with that
mhm.
um they might be harping on some of the things like you're mentioning like the mixes or like even honestly like here's the thing that I think is what makes them correctly rated. I think correctly rated. I think it's because of their songwriting skills. It's not because of the albums necessarily. Like it's their songwriting skills and the fact that they hold up, you know, over decades and decades. because like if you hear the Beatles, like they're great songs, but if you hear covers, they're great songs. And the thing is, like, it's really the fact that the melodies and the harmonies and the chord progressions have really stood the test of time, I think.
I'm glad we're really taking the brave stance of two straight white dudes defending the Beatles. I'm really glad someone needed to say that the Beatles were good, and you know what? I'm glad that we are the two that stood up for them. But the cliche aside, actually, that's something I will say. If you collect, I collect records. If you collect records, they're not worth money because like it's funny that people do this. There are three Beatles records that are actually worth money, and nothing else is. No other Beatles records are worth money. Because they printed a billion of them. They printed a million billion records. But I will say, if you buy old school Beatle records, it's worth it because they haven't been remastered to nonsense. So you can actually hear what people heard and thought was so good at the time.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and with the White Album specifically, I mean, like, it kind of makes sense that we're talking about that one, I think, and maybe I think it makes sense that that one's the one that we relate to because there's a lot of experimental stuff on it. That yeah, I mean, I love all of it, like both of it, the experimental and the non-experimental, but
Yeah, I know that's something that makes the White Album work is that
yeah.
it's also interesting that after such a long period of time. Last week we talked about Limp Bizkit, and now we are here. And, I feel like everything we say is tinged with my Limp Bizkit. Like I can't not know too much about Limp Bizkit. You know what I mean? I can't. My response of like, yes, one of the things I like about that album is that there is some stuff to bite into, and I find with sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes with experimental music, you're like, this is good abstractly, but I need something to chew eventually. Like every once in a while, I need something that gets me. I'm like, yeah. I was thinking about this recently, and sort of the re-rise of Midwest emo and sort of indie rocky stuff that we were seeing right now. Like we're seeing a minor rock resurgence, and I was thinking about the. I would love to hear because I have my opinions, and we have got time for this. I would love to hear your thoughts of the strengths of the guitar because you play that.
Well, there's a lot to say there, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I gave you 8 minutes, so good luck. You
right.
got to put it all in 8 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I think if I had to mention one thing off the bat, I think it's just the versatility, because it can be used in every genre of music,
Mhm.
and it works in every genre of music. So that's I think if I was going to mention just one thing off the bat, I mean, if you're talking about like the resurgence of indie rock, I mean that's a natural thing, but the thing is like you still hear the radio, you still hear the guitar on the radio, and you know the guitar is kind of a staple of popular and rock music
Mhm.
for decades, and it doesn't seem like it's going away. So
Yeah, and I was thinking like one of the things what's interesting. So I was re-listening to music I liked in the past, right? And I was just like, what do? And I was trying to I was really ruining it for myself by asking why do I like this? And one of the things that I like, especially in rock music, which is interesting, is there is that other things it can do. It might be in like why people like dubstep, which another 5 years we're gonna dubstep's coming back, second wave dubstep. Who's excited? Um, Dude, second wave, I keep pointing this out to everyone. Second wave new metal is happening, and I am fascinated. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was dead. It's back, baby. And it's like had a weird queer feminist bent. And I'm like, yeah, fucking be angry. Go get out
yeah.
there. We talked about this last week too, but it's coming back. But the thing that rock music can do, which I think is interesting, that a lot of genres can't, it's the return of like you set up a theme or like a riff, and then you go out and you do maybe the guitar solo and you really take it far out, and then you bring it back to the riff. And for some reason, you can do that in jazz. You can do that in a lot of different stuff. It's very powerful in rock music. That moment where like in Sonic Youth Silver Rockets where like they completely break down for a couple seconds, and then like you hear the drum coming back in, and then the riff comes, and then like the theme of the song returns. It's a very powerful moment that like is there, and because it's organic and it is um or feels organic, it means something. It is music that moves in a direction, and it can return to itself, and it can go far out. And I think in some ways, a lot of music can kind of hang out in one place for the,
Mhm.
you hang out in one place for 3 minutes. Maybe you do a bridge where you go, you go outside your house. But I feel that in many ways, rock music does a good job of really going on a journey, and I think that's why
Mhm.
in like, you know, it it in metal and stuff, it really opens itself up for like the epic yarn because it
Yeah.
feels like it's moving in directions. It can soar, it can crumble.
Mhm.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I think I think there can be a lot of variations of that because yeah, I think it doesn't have to be sort of the epic journey. I mean, it can be. I think that's part of what you're talking about is what makes it amazing. Like, whether you're talking about sort of like the old, like kind of classic rock things, like from Zeppelin, or like maybe more prog rock, stuff. Then, which there's some really cool prog rock stuff going on, that goes beyond like Dream Theater,
Mhm.
that is doing some really cool ideas. But I don't think it has to be really as expansive as that. Like even just a simple idea, like in like a 2 or 3 minute song, you can still have that journey.
Mhm.
Um, but that also kind of reminds me of something because you used to be in a improv group.
Oh God, yeah. Never thought
Uh,
I buried that.
so one of the things when I saw you guys perform that you guys used to do is you would call it long form improvisation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can look at me. I was a Herald guy. Yeah. Actually,
And
we were even more pretentious because we tried to break down the Herald into smaller parts and do it differently. But yeah, so the hair is so long form. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that like every time I saw you guys do it, what I was expecting something different than what you guys would do. So like I think basically if I remember correctly, and
Hmm.
maybe, but and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, like what you guys would like take a topic from the audience,
Hmm.
and then just start there, and then kind of like I guess take turns or something, kind of riffing off that. And then
Hmm.
what I was expecting it always to come back to that idea,
Hmm.
but that didn't seem like that was the idea of what you guys are doing. And I think it's actually because of what you're saying. Like I
Hmm.
have that background and I was expecting it to like come full circle. And so I always was left kind of unfulfilled from that. But you guys would just kind of like take the idea and then just spin it off and spin it off and
And
spin it
then web
off.
out. I
Just
think it's
web out.
actually
Yeah.
a weakness of the type of Herald we were doing. We started with a really traditional Herald with his two-person scene, two-person scene, two-person scene, group scene, two-person scene B, two-person scene B, two-person scene B, group scene, two-person scene C, two-person scene C, two-person scene C, group scene end. And
Okay, so
maybe,
you did have a structure to it. It,
yeah,
it just wasn't the structure I was expecting. Okay.
it's just not, it's a structure that if you don't see it, you don't know it. The Herald, which is like, it's an interesting piece and I think it's strong in its own way.
Mhm.
Uh, but the problem, I would argue that the problem with the hair, and by the time we were young and wild, so we were like playing with a format that not everybody, we had done the Herald at that point all through high school. So we were like trying to figure out how to do a new type of long form improv, which is
Mm.
dumb in some ways. Um, but the whole thing with the Herald is if the scenes don't work, you're stuck there 3 times, right?
Mm.
Because one and then one A are together, right? And then one
Okay.
C is together. So you've brought it back 3 times and you've said the same thing 3 times. The two group scenes don't have to have anything to do with anything. So
Okay.
and like it was sort of this like you're trying this explosion web of idea. And
Mm.
sometimes like improv is something I really like improv. I haven't done it in over a decade, but I do really love improv. I just don't think you should make other people watch. Like the joke I often like is D&D is improv with the dignity to not make other people watch. And they're like, well, sometimes people make people watch, and that people watch D&D, and I'm like, yeah, that's not D&D, that's improv with dice. I know what improv is when I see improv, and improv needs that other person to watch. But in the format we were using, there was just this fundamental problem that we never were able to fix, which is you can't, you couldn't do this subject enough that you could find out anything, really. Oh, and there was a story at the top. You could figure
Mm.
out anything enough around it. You were exploding too far out to be able to wrap it back around.
Mm.
And
Okay.
like, you know, and you could sometimes pull it off, but it wasn't a guarantee and you couldn't repeat it. We couldn't figure out how to repeat itself. And it was improv, so we had to make other people, improv on some level. Improv is forcing other people to watch you fail, uh, which is very good and romantic and interesting. And why I think it works in music is like you can fail interesting, but when it fails in comedy, you're like, okay. So this is
Right.
like Cruise Line, right? And then you just sit there and you suffer, and
Yeah.
that's why what's so nice about D&D is when it's magical, it's just magical for you. Also, and I'm not dissing Who's Line because that's the popular thing to do. I haven't done improv in forever, but the thing about Who's Line that they have, and if you watch like old Who's Line, like British Who's Line, like the
Mm.
more authentic one, it's harder to watch because it's edited to all go to hell. Is
Yeah.
like the best way to do improv is to improv and to get somebody to cut the nonsense out. And
Sure. Sure.
then
Yeah.
later on, you can put the nonsense back in for the people who are really into it for the art. But for like the normal person, it's an art form that should feel live, but might not necessarily should be live. There are people who are great at it, and I am proven
Yeah.
wrong every single day. But in the same breath, I have, because of the problems that you came across, I have always found it exhausting to try to fix those problems, and I never figured out how.
Well, um, well, the thing is, like, I always enjoyed it, so it
Good.
wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't saying that you guys are doing a bad job. I mean, I thought honestly, like, of not that I've seen a lot of improv groups, but I think that I was always entertained by you guys and always laughing, you know. And the thing is, like, and oh, I guess we're over time, but
Yeah, you do a
yeah,
thing, then we can wrap up your idea.
yeah. And I think I guess the other thing is that like it's you do see improv basically in other aspects of what you're doing, you know, and so that makes it like even though you're like, I mean, maybe this podcast or like other podcasts that you've been on, you know, I don't know how much you plan, you know, for for like the stuff I've heard, or like, you know, even the mascoting stuff, you know. So I imagine like there's probably some elements that you still retain in your life, you know, that you come across like with the improv.
I'm sure I do. I've purposely buried it so deep.
Yeah.
I never have to pull it back up again. I will say when we did improv, we always had a lovely emphasis on the strange, and I'm proud of some of the
Mhm.
work we put in front of people. We put out some very, not only funny, but just we loved being very odd.
Mhm.
So I am proud of making odd things. And
Yeah,
on Friday, hopefully, if everything goes well, you're going to check out a new odd thing, a product of the Yonko LLC.
that's right.
Illegal scam hold music. It's going to drop. It's very exciting. There will be, I think I can speak truth to this, Andrew. If not, just cut it off right before here. Later on, it will be released in other formats, but video, audio will be released on Friday.
Yeah,
Check.
that's right. We're looking forward to it. We hope you enjoy it.
We hope you have fun with our improv show. It's not improv, it was
It is
pre-written,
not improv at all.
improv at all.
In fact, it's probably a total opposite of it.
It was the most screen, it's the White Album of Yonka. Not the White Album, it was a lovely time. Bye, Andrew.
It was.